Hi there. So if you watched my last video, you know that when we have two functions, u and v, multiplying together, and we're taking the derivative of that entire product, we had this neat little formula, v times u prime plus u times v prime is going to give us an equivalent derivative. In this video, I'm going to focus on something called the quotient rule. So it's almost the exact opposite. There's just a bit of a variation. So if we have two functions, u and v, dividing by each other, we're taking the derivative of u and v. So u over v prime, that's going to equal our function v times the derivative of our function u. So v times u prime minus, right? That's why it's kind of the opposite of the product rule because we'd be adding minus u times v prime. Okay, so that's our numerator. And the difference between the product and the quotient rule is obviously this minus here. And also with the quotient rule, we have to divide by our v function squared. So it's super important that these correspond. The v always has to be on the bottom. If you switch up the order of u and v, you're not going to get the right answer. So you have to be mindful that the function v has to start your numerator and be multiplying into u prime. This product has to be before the minus sign. So you're subtracting u times v prime from v times u prime. You're subtracting u times v prime from v times u prime. So once you get this difference here, you're going to be dividing by the function v squared. Okay, so let's just think of an example. Let's say we're finding the derivative of 3x squared plus 18 over the square root of x. So we know this is going to equal v times u prime, right, minus u times v prime, divided by v squared. Okay, so let's just assign our v's and our u's. Okay, so we're going to call the top one u, right? Because in our formula, u is on the top. And we're going to be dividing by v here. So if 3 squared plus 18 is our u, and our v is just root x, we can start to substitute in some stuff. So v comes first, so that's going to be our root x times u prime. Well, the derivative of 3x squared plus 18, that's just going to be 6x. Okay, so 6x. Root x times 6x, that covers the first part here, v times u prime. Okay, now we're going to be subtracting u times v prime. Okay, well, u we don't need to change. That's going to be 3x squared plus 18. Okay, and we're going to be multiplying that by the derivative of v, right? V prime. So v is the square root of x. So if we want to find the derivative of the square root of x, we can just use our power rule. So the derivative of root x, that's the same as the derivative of x to the 1/2. So if we want to find the derivative of x to the 1/2, we bring this 1/2 out front, and we reduce the power of the exponent by 1. So this is going to be 1/2 x times, or to the power of 1/2 minus 1. So that's just going to be negative 1/2. Okay? And anything, like if you have a negative exponent, you can make it positive by just going 1 over that variable to the power of the positive version of itself. So that's going to be 1/2 times 1 over x to the 1/2. Okay, so that's just going to be 1 times 1, that's just 1. And 2 times x to the 1/2, that's just going to be 2 times the square root of x. Okay, so 1 over 2 root x is going to be the derivative of root x. Okay, so we're going to go times 1 over 2 root x divided by, well, our v was the square root of x. And remember, we're squaring our v on the bottom. Okay, so to simplify this, we're going to get 6x root x minus 3x squared plus 18 over 2 root x And all of that, right, all of that's going to be divided by the square root of x squared, which is just x. Okay, so this is going to be your final answer here using the quotient rule. Okay, and we could also kind of simplify this. Maybe we could combine these fractions or move the 2 root x to the bottom, make this a common denominator. We could manipulate it however we wanted, but this is kind of the main idea behind the quotient rule. So I'm only going to do one example because I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty similar to the product rule, so if you haven't seen that video, go back and check it out. They're similar rules, just one's multiplying, one's dividing, and with the quotient rule, remember we have this v squared on the denominator now, so that's kind of the main difference. Hope this makes sense, and yeah, I'll see you in my next video.